Thanks so much, Alex. My name is Nima.
And I'm Christine.
And we're the co-founders of Blue Lobster, a digital marketplace. We are basically trying to digitalize and democratize the fishing industry. Not a small feat for a really, really traditional industry where not that much innovation has happened, and it's definitely kind of trailing on the sustainability agenda. Overall, there are kind of two things we can look at with sustainability in fishing. How much we're fishing and how we're fishing. How much? That's up to the governments. I hope they're making good progress of that just down the road. But let's get into how we're fishing. What we look at is basically the methods. There are some really destructive methods that we're currently using. 25% of the seafood that we eat today is caught with bottom trawl. And if you look at the scale of that problem, as you can see here, bottom trawling releases just as much CO2 from the ocean floor as the entire flight industry. Now, raise of hands, how many of you guys have ever been made to feel bad about flying? Kind of had a little guilt when you got on a plane? So yeah, a lot of people. How many of you guys have then, in turn, felt bad about eating bottom-trawled fish? Still a few, okay. A very educated audience, but not as many, right? Because basically, it is an overlooked area in terms of sustainability. And we want to do something about that. One of the reasons is that we don't know that much about what is sustainable. Maybe because it's out of sight, out of mind under the ocean. But basically, there's no economic incentive right now for fishermen to use sustainable methods that don't ruin our ocean floor and protects things like biodiversity. This more or less comes from the fact that in the seafood logistics chains, there are lots of actors. Between when the fish is caught and the fish is bought, we have an average 5 middlemen. Now, that's a lot of people who have to get paid and have to take profit out of that value chain. And in the end, the fishermen are paid a pretty small price for every fish that they land. In the Danish context, you can see that 41% of our fishermen have left the industry within only 6 years. And unfortunately, it's the wrong fishermen leaving the industry. It's all the small guys who are using low-impact methods because it's consolidating on bigger fleets. Now, this is kind of ironic. We're living in a time where climate change seems to be on everyone's minds, and we have this huge COP, and people are flooding all over the world to talk about it. Yet, our fishing fleets are actively trending in the wrong direction. Now, some of the reasons for this is, first of all, powerful gatekeepers. There are very few buyers who sit and that the fishermen can sell to at this point. Often on harbors, there's maybe a couple and this basically means that the fishermen don't have a lot of bargaining power. They don't have options. They can't benefit from kind of open market practices of bargaining about and having many buyers come together to increase the prices. There's also lots of administration and misinformation about how do you buy directly from a fisherman, because it's a heavily regulated area. So the bureaucracy around it also limits the amount of people who go and work directly with the fishermen. It's easier, in this case, to just work with a wholesaler. And our solution, basically, Christine will get into it, but our solution is basically a tool that helps anyone procure directly from fishermen of all sizes. It's kind of like an access program, kind of like this CivTech program gives us access, us green startups gives us access to all these governments all over the world. In the same way, Blue Lobster gives procurers all over the world access to their local fishermen. Sometimes a connection is all you need.
Yeah, so what does this look like in practice? Basically, we've created a B2B marketplace where we're connecting fishermen to their customers. And in terms of the customers, we're really giving them access that they haven't been able to have before to be able to make that first purchase because of all of these barriers that Nima just described. And on the fisherman side, because we're cutting down the number of middlemen that have to carry that fish through the supply chain, the fishermen are able to earn more. In our case, it's 2 to 4 times what they could earn in other contexts, like selling through the auction or through other wholesalers. And how we're earning money through this is by both a subscription fee and a transaction fee. And behind the scenes of this connection that we're creating, there's all of this administrative requirements that are necessary in order to buy directly from the fishermen. And that's automated purchase notes. When the fisherman makes that direct sale, they need to send a purchase note onto their customer. The customer themselves needs to report the fish directly to the ministry. The fisherman has to report the catch. the landing catch, and if they do any dock sales, they need to report that. So there's a lot of administration that basically is preventing people from making this direct connection and hard coding that we continue the practices that are quite inefficient and trending in the wrong direction. So this is a heavily regulated industry, as I guess you guys are hearing. But we have we're the first company in Denmark to tap directly into the fishing ministry's quota reporting system. That means whenever a fish is sold through the platform, it's reported directly to the ministry. So we know that every single fish that's landed is accounted for. We know that it's coming out of the ocean. We can keep an eye on the health of the stocks in the sea, make sure that we're not overfishing herring or cod. And yeah, the other reality of this situation is that it's incredibly paper-based and error-prone. These are pictures of actual slips of paper that we get from the fishermen. And then, I don't know if you can see in the background, there are little slips of paper put directly into the box of fish, which is wet. And so often, the pen bleeds. It's super hard to read. We have to call the fishermen and be like, even if they're really meaning to tell us exactly what it is that we're getting, there's still huge rooms for error and miscommunication. So that is what we're trying to fix by digitalizing all of this. And we have been operating actively in Copenhagen for 17 months, through the pandemic, of course, but 17 months of actually being active. And we have basically taken on the logistics and the operations and really got into it to understand what is it that's necessary in order to work directly with the fishermen. And we broke even in June, and now we're in the process of outsourcing all of that operations to another partner. And our aim is to become the tech platform that facilitates others to buy directly from fishermen anywhere in the world. And yeah, that's the next step.
Yeah, we're kind of in the process of these next steps. So, as Chris says, we broke even, and for us, that was a proof of case. We wanted to show that you could actually earn money working with these local fishermen, doing the local sourcing. After that, we needed to, of course, test it against a different context. So we, over the summer, started operating in Germany. We are now operating in both Berlin and Hamburg, and we're slowly in the process of getting all of it out of house in Copenhagen as well, which we hope to conclude by the end of the year. And our ask to you is that hopefully someone listening would also like to be on the journey of saving our oceans. We are currently fundraising, so there's of course a little ask for that. If there's anyone interested in joining our little scaling journey, as we like to be a little punny around here, or at least we do our best. We're currently raising 1 million euros to bring us to 7 new cities over the next 2 years. But we also are really looking for any introductions to people, to governments who would like to increase the data quality of the catch that fishermen are reporting, of producer organizations who would like their fishermen to get paid a better price, or for big buyers who would like to get access to fresher, sustainable fish. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you will join our revolution.
Thank you.
Christina, Nima, thank you so much. I know. Sorry. Guilherme, come in with a question, but I know I've got a couple of questions anyway, just having heard some of that. So, no, after you, Guilherme.
Great. Great work, girls. As a friend of mine likes to say, good stuff. And what I was thinking about is how can you connect the local producers? How do you identify them? And on your roadmap, so you're thinking about 7 new countries, right? So how are you going to connect with the local producers? Because I understand the informality that you mentioned. In Brazil, it's the same. So you go to the beach, you have local markets that you buy them the fish that is caught in there. And I really can see room for digitization. Of course, there are the digital divide and all. But specifically here in Europe, thinking about your roadmap, how are you going to make these connections? Because it's easier, of course, when you're from Denmark, understanding your local market. But when you go to Germany or go to France or Spain, how do you pretend to do that, to make sure that you will really cut the middle guy?
Yeah, I guess I can take that. In the Danish context, we just started going out and going down to the harbors and started talking, and we could see that there was like quite a ripple effect. Once we started to work with one fisherman in a harbor, the other ones started to get curious and started to poke around, and they observed us for a little while. And then we started to get contacted from fishermen throughout Denmark. And we're also working closely with the low-impact fishermen unions. There's this umbrella organization throughout Europe, and they are connected to all of the fishermen. So I think as we go into new markets, we're also going to rely on their collaboration to connect us to their union members. Yeah.
Jamie.
First of all, huge congratulations. It seems like an amazing platform you're building. Are there any protocols you have in place to ensure that the fishermen that supply food on your platform use sustainable fishing methods? And if so, is the ambition to start working with larger scale fishing operations and to implement those practices onto those, or influence those practices?
Right, so as it is right now, we're working in a European context, so we can see through the databases that, that we're plugging into that the fishermen are using the sustainable practices. Right now, it's at a point where we have capacity to ensure that they're all using low-impact methods, and as we scale through Europe, we expect it to be very similar. That basically you're registering with the government what methods you're using, so we can translate that into our database. If we go kind of into less regulated markets, that is a question that we're talking about internally, and I think we'll mostly rely on local partners who can go out and verify the fishing methods that are being used, because otherwise it would be self-reported data. So there has to be some kind of collaboration, as Chris said, with these low-impact fishermen unions who are already pushing the methods agenda, so they have a reason to be aligned. But to your question about kind of the bigger vessels, we can work with bigger vessels as long as the methods are right. So a lot of people think of us as like small boats only, but for us it's really about the methods. So you could be a big boat, as long as you're not harming the ocean floor and that you have some way to discriminate about ensuring that you don't have lots of bycatch. Bycatch basically is fish that you didn't mean to catch. So like it could be endangered species, or it could be really small fish that were supposed to grow big and repopulate the oceans. As long as you're using good methods, it doesn't matter your size. Of course, as we see it, our long-term ambition is to create an economic incentive in the market that will help turn unsustainable fishing vessels into sustainable fishing vessels. If we can keep the premium that we're currently at, we really do believe that we can create an economic incentive and use kind of capitalistic market forces to push the transition.
I've got a couple of questions. One, because when we've been, and it's been great getting to know you both over the past sort of 3 months or so, and Blue Lobster as a company, and you talked, think back when people record fish when they are landed, not when they're caught. So you could have big trawlers that catch it on a particular day, freeze it, but they don't log it until it lands. So, and that's the bit that I found fascinating, is that we don't actually know when our fish was actually caught.
Yeah, no, this is a huge issue, and I think it's something that people aren't super aware about. Like when you go to the grocery store, you can see that there's a production date, but you will almost never see the date that it's actually caught. And part of it is because often the fishermen don't know. They'll go out for a couple weeks at a time. They land it, they process it on the boat, and they stick it in a freezer, and then when they land, and you can look at the auction data, you'll see a range of potential catch dates, which is the entire time that they were out. And then when it's packaged, that's the date that you see as a customer. And I think this is just hugely misleading, and it's a big educational process. We need to make everybody understand that that is not at all showing you anything to do with when that fish was actually caught, and it could be quite old. A Danish study found that the fish that was in the grocery stores, which was anywhere between 5 and 16 days, the fresh, non-frozen fish. So it's actually quite nasty, but it's a very good thing to know and to start to question.
Well, and it all comes to this whole question of provenance, and do you know where something has come from, and its origins and its dates. The other thing, just briefly, is where was the inspiration to start this?
All right. So our company is based in Denmark, but actually I'm coming as an outsider who I'm originally from the US, and I had this expectation or assumption, I guess, when I arrived in Denmark, that it was a country that had big roots in, like, traditional roots in fishing, and that I was going to find lots and lots of seafood, which is one of my loves. And that was just not what I found. As a student who didn't have so much money in the grocery stores, it was quite limited. It obviously wasn't very fresh. And then, yeah, Nima and I started to poke into the issue, and we started to go down to the harbors, and we started to talk to the fishermen, and we basically just realized how inefficient the whole system was in terms of how long it takes, how many middlemen the fish have to pass through before it reaches the end consumer, and in turn, how little the fishermen are being paid. And a lot of them were taking part-time jobs in the grocery stores because they just weren't earning enough. And I think, yeah, basically poking around, we were shocked, and we just realized that this is an industry nobody really talks about that much, and people don't really know all the details because there are so few players. And yeah, I guess that's kind of where it stemmed.
Hold that thought about being, a student and, looking at the price of fish. Hold that thought for the next presentation, because we're going to come into this afterwards, and it's about the stories behind the entrepreneurs. So, Christine, Nima, thank you both so much. Great as ever. And yes, please give it to them.